Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. Um, RE, let's talk about it. So, I decided to do something a little different than my previous video that my husband and I did. So, today I wanted to do kind of like a little story time, I guess, like a story time about miscarriage. And that's a topic that people don't really talk about. And I know for a lot of women, that's a very sensitive subject to talk about. But I just wanted to share my experience with you guys, and hopefully, it'll be able to, encourage or get a conversation started, or, that'll make you feel less like you're alone. Because trust me, you are not. So, okay. Um, I don't like to say I have or to claim anything, but according to the doctors, they say that I have sickle cell disease. Now, that's a whole nother video in itself about sickle cell, and I'll get into that later. Not this video though, but sickle cell and miscarriage are kind of like hand in hand. Um, I remember from a young age, I think I was maybe 8, 9 or something, and I remember being in the hospital for a crisis. And I remember the doctor coming in and telling my parents that if I ever thought about having kids or if I ever wanted to have kids, that it would probably be very difficult, if not impossible, for me to have kids. So as a kid myself, I was just sitting there like, I don't want no kids. Like, what are you talking about? I'm 8. Like, that's not even a thought. But fast forward into my adult life, my husband and I, well, at the time, fiance and I, um, got pregnant for the first time in 2010. I think like the end of 2010. And, that was the first time that I've ever been pregnant. I was excited and I couldn't wait to tell him. And everything was going great. I started reading everything online about pregnancy, what to expect, what changes are coming, what do you need to do. And probably around this 5 to 6 week mark, I started having like really bad like stomach cramps. And I had no idea what that was about, why I was having bad stomach cramps. So I ended up going to the ER, and they basically told me like, you are miscarrying. So again, first time being pregnant, I have no idea what to expect in pregnancy. So I definitely have no idea what to expect with a miscarriage. So again, I went home. I went to Dr. Google, and I just started researching everything about miscarriage, what to expect, what's happening in the next coming days, and how to prepare myself and what to do, yada yada yada, and all of this stuff, which basically drove me crazy. And here's a tip: if you're ever experiencing any discomfort, any weirdness, or whatever that's going on, do not Google it, okay? Because Google will make you feel like your arm is about to slide out of socket at any moment. Don't Google stuff because it only makes you crazy, or crazier in my case. But anyway, back to the story. So that was the first miscarriage. Like I said, the end of 2010, somewhere in there. And we ended up getting pregnant again a few months later. I miscarried again. And so this is 2011, probably beginning of 2011, like the first half of 2011. Miscarried again. So now I'm deep. I'm deep in my feelings. Like, what is wrong with me? Why can't I do this? This is something that women have been doing for years. And what's wrong with me is the question that I kept asking myself. Like, what is wrong with me? Why don't my parts work like they're supposed to work? But for one, I had to do two things. For one, I had to let go and stop stressing and worrying about the situation. And the second thing was I had to give it to God. Now, I know some of you might be saying, like, oh, okay, you prayed about it, yada, yada. But growing up, I was taught, um, you go to church, you praise God, you do all this stuff, but I really wasn't given like the details of building a relationship and submitting yourself and doing all of these things. So in my mind, I just thought I should be able to do this. I can get pregnant when I want to get pregnant. I can control every single aspect of my life. Not so much. So when it was time to get pregnant, I was getting frustrated with myself because I kept looking at it like, what is wrong with me? Why can't I do this? I want to have a kid during this specific time, and this is what needs to happen, but that's not what was happening. So I was kind of angry a little bit. I would joke about some things. Like I would see other pregnant women, I would look like pregnant and stuff. But that's just me. And I know my husband, he was so supportive and tried to say all the encouraging things and, it'll happen in God's time. And when it's supposed to happen, it'll happen and don't worry about it. I wasn't trying to hear none of that. Like, I didn't want to hear, no, the sun will come out tomorrow speeches, or I didn't want to hear it. I just wanted to be pregnant at the moment I wanted to be pregnant. So fast forward a few months, I get pregnant again. This time, it was a different outcome. And we end up having our first daughter, Raya, in January of 2012. And during that whole time, I was excited, like an excited, anxious, nervous, mixed all into one, because I was kind of in the back of my mind, I was thinking, I hope this one sticks. I hope this one stays. I hope this one stays. So as the months kept going, and then I started feeling movements and all this other stuff, and it was still a little voice in the back of my mind, like, I hope this one works out. I hope it sticks. I hope, that it doesn't go left like the other two. But she ended up being a healthy 6 pound, 6 ounce baby. She was a great baby, all of that. But so that was 2012, we had our first daughter. And probably around 2012, later, because I had her in January. So probably the middle going towards the end of 2012, I got pregnant again and ended up having another miscarriage. And so that's like mid 2012. So then like the end of 2012, yet again, I was pregnant again and another miscarriage. So now we're on miscarriage number 3. And at this point, it was kind of like, okay, here's another one. I'll just take some Tylenol, lay down, whatever. So 2014, in July of 2014, I ended up having my second kid, which is my son, Lyrics. And after I had him, I started thinking like, okay, is this going to be my pattern? Like, is every third pregnancy going to result in a kid? Because with the first two, there were 2 miscarriages before the birth of my daughter and before the birth of my son. So now in my mind, I'm looking like, is this my pattern? Like, am I just going to keep having 2 miscarriages, then have a kid? So I was kind of, in my mind, I was done. I had my boy, I had my girl, I was good, I was finished. God had other plans, right? So he was born in 2014. So 2000, I got pregnant again in 2014, like end of the year 2014. And no, that's not right. The beginning, no, that's not right either. December of 2014, I was pregnant again with our third kid, Ryan. Um, Now I know y'all probably thinking like, dang girl, you'd have been pregnant like 1,000 times. And it literally feels like that. But I swear it's like every year I was pregnant. from the time my husband and I got together from 2010 up until right now, 2021, I legit was pregnant like every year. So we're on like miscarriage number 2, 4, 5, like miscarriage number 5. And okay, so here is where the story gets a little worse. Um, so in April of 2018, I would in like 2017, I think, one of those years. So I got pregnant again, and this time it wasn't planned. It just kind of popped up. So I'm excited. Everything is great. I'm going to my appointments. Everything is developing normally like they're supposed to. The ultrasounds, he's bouncing all around the screen and everything. So in my mind, okay, so we're just gonna basically prepare for another baby and everything is good. Everything was not good. I ended up going to like a regular checkup appointment because I had to go to appointments weekly because of the sickle cell. So I was considered to be high risk. So I went to my regular appointment, and usually my husband will go with me to every single doctor's appointment. But this time I told him, you can just hang out and stay at the house because it's just going to be maybe a 15-minute appointment just to, check heartbeat, growth, all that type of stuff. So it's not like a serious appointment that we need to get everybody together to go to. So I went by myself to the appointment, and getting there was a challenge in itself because the office park where the office was at, when I say every building were the exact same building, so I was legit walking around in circles for about a good 30 minutes. Now by this time I'm like 5.5, 6 months pregnant, and I live in Vegas in the summertime. So it had to be about a good 100 degrees outside. So I'm walking around for about a half an hour, lost. I'm hot. I'm frustrated. My back hurt. And I called my husband and I just flipped out. Like, I cannot find this office. All the buildings look alike. The numbers don't make any sense. I don't know where it is. I'm hot. I'm lost. I just want to go home. So I had like an entire meltdown, right? So he's like, babe, get yourself together. Just see if you can find somebody to, ask them for the directions or where the office is. I said, okay. I go to one door, it's locked. They tell you there's a sign like go around to the back door. Okay, go to the back door. The office is closed. So I go like next door to do the same thing, grab the door. It's locked. Nobody's there. So by this time, I'm like sweating. I'm past frustrated. And I finally find the office on like the back end of this whole office park that had maybe like 5 or 6 like buildings that each had like 20 businesses in each building. It was crazy. So, excuse me, I finally find the office, and I get checked in. I go in the back, put the little paper gown thing on so they can do the ultrasound. And the techs, like the ultrasound techs, they're not really allowed to say anything during the ultrasound. They're just supposed to just look and record information and get stuff for the doctor. But when the tech got started, she put the gel, got the probe and everything, and then she was like, "Oh, that's not good." So I'm laying on the table and I'm like, "What do you mean? Like, what's not good?" So she's like, I can't find a heartbeat. You can't find it. At first it was like, okay, you can't find his heartbeat. Now that wasn't like the alarming part because he was a runner. So one moment he'll be over here, the next moment he'll be clean somewhere else. So that didn't really alarm me because, it's happened before, but he was in a totally different spot than where they thought. So they had to just kind of like look around longer than they expected to. So when she said that initially, it was like, what do you mean? Like, okay, well, keep looking. So she's like, I'm gonna go get the doctor and be right back. So the doctor comes in and she gets the probe and she starts scanning and going over my belly, and she was like, I'm sorry, but there's no heartbeat. The moment she said that, it's like it was legit like an out of body type of experience. Like I was looking at myself laying on the thing, like staring up at the screen, like, what do you mean? Just a week before that appointment, I had, another ultrasound and everything was fine. Like I said, he was bouncing and jumping and he was all over the place. So I'm like, what do you mean? And she was like, there's no activity. She was like, I'm looking at, the blood flow and this and the that, and there's no blood flow. There's no red and blue squiggly stuff on the screen. There's no fetal tones. There's just nothing. So I was stuck. It's like I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to think. I didn't know what to say. I just sat there like, what? So call my husband and he's like, how did the appointment go? And I'm like, it's bad. And he was like, what do you mean it's bad? And I was like, it's bad. Like there's no heartbeat. Silence. And he was like, what do you mean there's no heartbeat? Like, what? So at this point, I'm crying. I'm like a complete mess. Because, like I said, I was about 6 months pregnant at the time. So I didn't know, again, all this stuff started playing in my mind. Like, okay, what is wrong with me? Like, what happened this time? Like, I just had 3 kids, like 3 healthy kids. That's, nothing is wrong with them. So what went wrong this time? So the doctor comes in and she's talking, and it was like a Charlie Brown moment. All I heard was wah, 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 wah. I don't even really know what she said because it was just like, what do you mean? And I remember getting home, and my husband was in his prayer closet, and he was just going in like, we declare life and not death, and I'm not accepting this, and this is not what the reality is, and everything's going to be fine. God's going to turn this around. We were on 2 totally different pages at that time because he was so hopeful, and he had, at that time, his faith was like out the box. So he felt like at any moment it was going to be like some type of miracle situation, and that, the baby would just start moving and doing things again. And to me, I was not on that same wavelength. So that really did cause it did kind of put a wedge a little bit between me and Rod, because like I said, we were on 2 totally different pages. And from being there, seeing like the baby on the monitor, just no movement, just laying there still, that stuck with me. And I think because he wasn't actually there and he didn't see it, we were missing each other when it came to how we dealt with it, because I seen one thing and he just heard, my like me tell him what happened. So I think that was one of like the major differences, is because he didn't actually see the ultrasound. And I know a lot of times I would cry like a lot, and I would just, like, God, what is happening? Like, why did this happen? I was almost at the finish line. Like, I'm 6 months in this thing. Like, why did everything just go left? And a lot of times I would, come out and look for Rod just for comfort. Like, just hug me. I just want to cry. Like, I don't really want to talk about anything. Just give me a hug and let me cry. That was not the case. Like, when I would come out in tears, like come out of the room, like in tears or I was, extra emotional, his thing was, I don't know what you're crying for. Like, I'm not accepting this. This is not what this is, and you can get yourself together. But it was like that was kind of like his defense mechanism in order to kind of cope and deal with what was happening. So I kind of went through that whole process pretty much by myself. And I cried a lot by myself. And now the one thing that I did not know was that I still had to like deliver him like I would have if I had went full term. So they the ultrasound people sent all the information over to my OB doctor. Um, she calls me, and she, I'm sorry that this happened, and I just got the results from the ultrasound, and we need to get you scheduled for, to it's because at that point it's not really a D&C, it's like a legit like delivery. So she was just like, we need to get you scheduled at the hospital so we can go ahead and get everything taken care of and make sure that there's no, effects to you or. So I don't know what I thought for real about that. Like, I guess I figured I would just go like in the office or something and do something, or I really don't know what I was thinking, but I can tell you what I was not thinking. I was not thinking that I would still have to go to the hospital where I registered to have him and check in and get checked in the room and like actually still go through the process of giving birth. I did not know that. So when I was talking to my doctor and she's like, yeah, we can go ahead and get you checked in to the hospital and this and that. And so when you arrive on this day, you're going to go to the labor and delivery floor. And I was like, whoa, wait, what do you mean I'm going to the labor and delivery floor? I was like, for what? So she's like, to get you prepped and ready for, the surgery and all this other stuff. And I'm like, well, why do I have to go to the labor and delivery floor? Like, I don't understand. So she was basically like, because you're so far along that I would still have to basically like deliver him. Time stood still for a few seconds when she said that because I'm like, what do you mean? Like, so I still have to go through the motions of having this baby to walk out by myself. Mentally, I was in a whole different headspace. I was not prepared for that. So I remember getting to the hospital, and when the doors opened on the labor and delivery floor, there's like a giant picture of a baby or something on the wall, and it said like, welcome to labor and delivery. I read that. I had a whole breakdown in the hallway because it was like, I'm here kind of like for no reason, kind of is what I was thinking. And, like I said, I was 6 months, so I'm obviously like visibly pregnant. And, you see people coming and going, people down the hallway. So they see me and my husband and our other kids, and they see the bag. And obviously I'm pregnant. So everybody's like, oh, congratulations. And what are you having? And what is it? So they don't know what the situation is. So I was trying not to be rude, but in the back of my mind, it was like, if you don't leave me alone with all your congratulations, there's nothing to congratulate here. Like, this is not a happy occasion. But I just had to suck it up and, oh, thank you. It's a boy, yada, yada, yada. But it like mentally, I was not in a good headspace. And I remember getting checked into my room and we didn't tell our kids anything because they were like really young at the time. So I remember I was sitting on the bed and my daughter was walking around the room, and the little bassinets that they put the baby in next to your bed, it was like against the wall, and she was just walking around the room looking at things, and she was like, is this where they're gonna put Kai in? And I looked and I was like, I said, yeah, that's where they put babies. They put them in there. And then I had to turn and look away and like have a moment. But that whole entire process was difficult, is like an understatement. And you don't really understand how tough or strong that you can be until you're in a situation where you have to be tough and strong. Because if you had to ask me prior to that, like, do you think this is something that you can handle or deal with? My answer definitely would have been no. And then even with given the things that happened during that time that I was in the hospital, for one situation, after they started me on the pitocin and the contraction started and I actually delivered him. And then I had to go for a DNC just to clean out everything and to make sure there was nothing left or whatever. And during that process, apparently I lost like half of my body's like blood supply. Now, that's crazy in itself to even just say that. But the crazier part was I had no idea that that had even happened over the course of, I think I was there maybe 2 days. So, yeah, that was over the course of, I want to say like 3 days, I think. And I remember it was like the next morning after, the DNC and they did everything. And I was in the bathroom brushing my teeth and I looked up and I could see the nurse standing in the doorway of the bathroom, like watching me brush my teeth. So I'm brushing and I look up like, so I'm like, is there a problem? Like, is everything okay? And she's like, I'm just in awe of you, that you're just up and you're moving around unassisted and you're just moving like nothing has happened. So I'm just thinking she's talking about the whole situation, like, period. So I'm like, well, it's, even though, it was difficult, but this isn't my first. And then you can't even really call that a miscarriage because of how far along I was. But, I was like, it's not really my first miscarriage. So I kind of, you know, I was feeling like myself. But she was like, no, you don't know what happened, do you? So I'm looking around like, what happened to who? Happened to what? Like, what are you talking about? So I looked like, what happened? What do you mean? And she was like, well, my dear, you lost like half of your blood supply. When did I do that? Like, what? When? So she's like, let's say if your body has like 100 liters of blood, you lost like 50 of it. What? And she was like, and to see you like the very next day just up and about and moving around with no problem. She was like, I never seen anything like this. She was like, I've never seen anything like you. So I'm sitting there on the side of the bed, stuck once again, like, what? Like, when did this happen? Like, at what point in this process did I lose almost all of my blood? Like, did nobody tell me? Like, what do you mean? Like, where did it go? So she was saying, like, usually in those situations, we have to give like transfusions and we have to do all this stuff. And, that we were hoping that, you wouldn't have went into shock. And it was like so much at one time. It was like, okay, whoa, start from the beginning. Like, what do you mean? But she was like, the moment like you started losing blood, she was like, the first thing is to to make sure, like, do you need a transfusion and this and this. And she was like, we didn't have to give you a transfusion. She was like, thank God that you didn't go into shock or that you didn't go into any like adverse situation. So she's talking and I'm just sitting there like, what? Like, what? So the whole time it's like I was confused. And then like I told my husband, I don't even think I told him in that, that same moment. I think I told him like weeks like after the fact about the blood thing and, all of that. So that was like miscarriage number 6. And by far that was the worst one because like I said, I was 6 months along, like I was almost done and everything went left. And my husband said that, while he prayed about it and was trying to get answers, that he was told that Kai would have had like some type of heart condition, and if it didn't happen then it would have happened later. And for that, I'm definitely thankful and grateful, even though growing through the process was like a difficult process. But if that, what the situation was, like him having like a heart condition, I definitely would not have preferred to have it happen later when he was, 1 or 2 or whatever, how many years old, for it to happen then. Like that really would have been devastating. But everything happens for a reason, and I've learned to really be thankful because well, I don't want to claim it, but the doctors say that I have sickle cell, and having that, I'm not a stranger to hospitals and ER visits and um, IVs and all of this stuff. But it's like, even in all of my situations where things did not look like they should have been what they were, it's like I was totally different. Like the situation looked bad, but the way I was acting and moving and maneuvering, you would think like nothing was wrong. And every hospital that I've ever been in, at least one nurse or a doctor would always say, I'm amazed by you. Like I've never seen this before in my life. And to me, that's, they always look at me like I'm strange. Like, what is wrong with you? Like, you're supposed to be down and out and sickly and not moving around, but that was never my case. So they would literally look at me like I was some type of weirdo. But I know what that was. I know that, there's angels around me and that God is protecting me, but they don't know that. And even that's the only thing that I can say that actually got me through that whole situation with Kai, was that God had me from the beginning until the end, because that's not something that I could have consciously, got through and dealt with on my own.